Yesterday, we had a very interesting announcement from Olo. They've created their own customer app. And the big question is really, is this, who's this a win for? Is this a win for guests? Maybe. I think so. But let's see. Let's see what we've got. So did a little bit of research. And let me just start with one quick confession, okay? My phone has too many restaurant apps. And the reward for being loyal is apparently, another login, another password reset, another push notification asking if I'm hungry at 10:17 p.m. So so when Olo says, hey, if there was one app to order from the hundreds of restaurant brands, my first thought was like, oh, finally. Wait a minute, we can have one app with all of these things together. But my second thought was like, don't we kind of already have this with some of the other third party places? And then my third thought was like, all right, so what's in it for Olo? What's the catch? So let's see. You know, this is so today I want to talk about Olo launching a customer facing order app. And the question I care most about is this good for Olo or is this good for brands? And I really want to explore, is this a win for guests? Like a real win. It's not congrats, you have a new icon on your phone, right? I want to know if this is going to be truly a win for consumers. Restaurant business, right on the scene. They've quickly framed it as a kind of remote control for food ordering, and I think that's the way that Olo wants it positioned, this as this remote control. And honestly, I think that's kind of the right mental model for what they're trying to create here. So, why guests I think might love this? Well, first and foremost, I think it's less app chaos, right? Maybe people are saying to themselves, okay, maybe my home screen can breathe again a little bit easier. So if Olo can actually pull this off, the guest upside, I think, is completely obvious. One app to order from a big chunk of the restaurant universe, right? Especially brands powered by Olo behind the scenes. And there are many, many, many brands that utilize Olo for their order management. Because right now, guests, I think, are basically managing a collection of restaurant apps. Like, it's funny, like when you group all of your apps into folders, right? If you have an iPhone. And I have all of my restaurant apps inside of a folder. And it's kind of ridiculous, but I feel like I'm collecting Pokemon cards. Like they're cute, but nobody really asked for that kind of lifestyle of collecting restaurant apps. I like this idea of this aggregation that Olo seems to pull off. So potentially, we're looking at fewer marketplace headaches for brands. So Olo's whole positioning on this is like, if we can give you the convenience of a marketplace without being a marketplace. Okay, well, I think if you were to translate that, that might mean less of the why is this burrito $4 more in the store experience. That's really what I think they're trying to get at. It's not guaranteed, but I think it opens the door, especially if restaurants aren't eating the same commission structure that forces weird economics downstream. So I think this could be a real win for consumers if, in fact, the Olo app can bring the price of the food back into the stratosphere for normal consumers. Another thing that I think about is that I think with this Olo offering, brands might have better personalization. And And I think better personalization meaning like the good kind, not necessarily the creepy kind, right? So Olo's they're framing it as this like second party ordering as opposed to first party, which is directly from the brand, or third party, which is like from DoorDash or Uber Eats or what have you. Olo's positioning it as second party ordering. And that concept is basically meaning that restaurants still own the guest relationship. But the network helps with reach and data, so the experience gets better across brands. So this is good news, I think, from a guest perspective, because what this means ultimately is that better reordering, right? Remembered preferences. You can favoritize. You can mark which brands are your favorite. It can remember your preferences. I think that ultimately it's going to mean fewer steps to checkout. So what this could mean, the second party ordering could mean that offers don't feel like spam. Maybe they will. But I think the level of personalization now, because the data is shared between Olo and the brands, the preferences are going to be better. The offers are going to be better. Everything's going to feel like it should feel more personalized. At least I think that's the promise of this, which is a good thing. Which is a great thing for brands, especially that want a more personal connection with people that are ordering food using these marketplace apps. But let's talk about where that same promise gets tested. So I think there's going to be some trade-offs here. Personalization is always one kind of bad setting away from being annoying, right? I mean, the more personalized you get, the more it can lend itself into creepy territory, or even more annoyingly so, bombardment. So I think if the app becomes a notification cannon where you're just constantly being, muzzle velocity level notifications, guests are gone. Just leave it alone. Stop being, this using notifications as firepower. It's incredibly annoying. And I don't think it's just me thinking that way. Another thing is, I think if the app starts getting or feeling like a tracking device, if this app is, you're using this as a tracking device with a menu attached to it, guests are gone. I think in the reporting that I've seen, and from Noah Glass, CEO of Olo's speech, I think Olo is kind of openly talking about unified guest profiles and network effects. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but it sounds good. It sounds like unified guest profiles. Okay, that feels powerful, but if it's a guest win, I think it's going to depend on guest control. Clearly, I want to see clear opt-ins, right? I want to see clear and clean permissions. If I want to be able to turn it off, I want be able to turn it off. I want that button to work the first time. And I think it's incredibly important. And this is not just for Olo, frankly, but for any app. The idea that you are respecting privacy, followed by 17 toggle switches and configuration setups inside of settings. No. Let's make it easy. Right? If I want notifications, how many notifications? I want to be able to turn it off. Don't lose me on the creepiness, please. Another thing, I think another important part of this, though, are brand apps. The brand apps are not going away. I don't think that this is a substitute for brands having their own direct connection or real estate on a phone. I think this is another marketplace, but and I think Ed Olo is actually framing that this is not replacing restaurant apps. I think that brands will still have their first party experiences, and I think that they are going to continue to rely on those and continue to want to get people to interact with their apps directly. The same way that Marriott wants you to interact with Bonvoy directly, as opposed to going to Expedia or a third-party marketplace. Listen, it's always best to have that connection and that relationship with the brand. That's what the brand wants. I think a lot of consumers want that too, but we also have to understand that not everybody is a McDonald's. Not everybody is a Chick-fil-A. There are going to be thousands upon thousands of other restaurants that would love to have that position of owning real estate on somebody's phone. But the reality, the best way to get there is going to be through a marketplace app. And I think Olo, with their vast amount of customers and the reputation that they have for a very clean guest experience, I think this is going to bode well for them. So the guests are going to ask a question, though, when it comes to Olo or DoorDash or Uber Eats or the brand app. And the question is, hey, is this better than the brand's app? That's a big question. And here's the trick. And I think that this is where loyalty comes into play. Because if loyalty points and status and perks and stored payment and skip the line stuff and, if those things are only, still live in the brand app and they don't cross into the Olo app, then I think Olo is going to need a different look for here. Maybe they'll have to play more on convenience or speed or accurate discovery. Either way, it has to work flawlessly. I think there has to be some complementariness between the brand's app and what Olo's doing in order for them to coexist and coexist well. So another thing that I was considering when looking through this research, I wanted to understand a little bit more about habit. Habit is kind of like, this is the final boss in some ways of the consumer experience. Like, can you get into habit? If Olo builds like the cleanest ordering experience on the planet, then guests could have a default behavior. DoorDash, Uber Eats, the usual suspects. So Olo isn't just shipping software here. They're trying to change behavior. And I think that's ambitious, respectfully. I think that's really ambitious. But they're going to have to break into habit. And that, we'll see. We'll see if that... We'll see if they can pull that off. I think if anybody has proven that they'd have a shot at it with the intimate knowledge and experience that Olo has, and frankly, in creating a category, they have as good a shot as anybody. So going back to the initial question, is this actually a win for guests? Are guests going to win from this? Is this a good thing for everybody? For me, for you, for people that use ordering apps? Well, my verdict is that, yes, this is a win for guests. If Olo nails three things. Number one, it's meaningfully simpler, right? We need to make sure that it's not slightly different. It's not a new interface to learn. It's got to be meaningfully simpler. Fewer steps, faster reorders, smoother payment, easy to access preferences, better tracking. So if it's meaningfully simpler, I think that'll be a win. Another thing is, and this is the big one really, are economics fair? Are the economics, do the economics feel fair? If it's the same kind of inflated pricing, and fee soup, guests won't care, right? If it still feels considerably expensive on the app than it does walking into the store, I think you're going to lose people right off the bat. I mean, if it feels more direct, like more transparent, more consistent, now we're talking, right? If it's very clear that there's value, not just in the convenience and the simplicity, but in the price, I think that has to be transparent there. Another area that I thought was kind of important is this concept of trust. For apps to be on your phone, to a certain degree, there has to be some trust there, right? If the app feels respectful, clean privacy controls, sane notifications, no insane muzzle velocity notifications, no creepy vibes, I think guests will give it a shot, or at least give it a whirl inside of the real estate of the phone. But if it feels like the network knows everything, or there's weird creepiness, or the notification, I think they're going to bounce. And like anything else, they'll bounce quietly. It's not like the app might disappear from somebody's phone. It's just that they might not use it. So there's a lot on the line there. I think simplicity is going to win. I think the economics are absolutely huge. And I think that trust, along with privacy and settings, are going to play important roles here. So what I'm kind of watching for next in terms of development is I'm really particularly interested in the loyalty aspect of this. How is that going to work across brands? If I use the Olo app, and there could be hundreds, I don't know, thousands of different restaurants on there, never mind like the last mile, how the food is actually going to get to me, or if it's just pickup. I'm not sure how that's going to fully work, but I want to know how the loyalty works across these different brands. If I order something through the Olo app in one restaurant, do I get points? Do those points translate to purchase at another restaurant? How does that work? I'm very, very interested in understanding how that works. I also want to understand how the discovery of it works. Like how am I finding new restaurants? What might bubble up without still being guest friendly, without becoming an ad mall, right? Like the last thing we want are just being bombarded with ads inside of an app. That's no good either. So I'm curious to see how they work discovery into this. It'll be also interesting to see if Olo gets new business from this. Is from a restaurant adoption standpoint, is Olo going to see now an influx of new customers that may have considered Olo in the past, but now they're like, shit, yeah, we got to get with Olo. I mean, maybe, I don't know. How do brands promote it? Does, just coming from like a bit of an agency background, are there co-op dollars? Is there an ad budget for this? Do restaurants pay an ad fee? I don't know. Let's see. I'm very curious to see how that works. Is it going to be a prominence play? Like, to bubble up, to the first page of the Olo app, is there a fee? So we'll see. If it turns into, an ad mall where promotion is now taking precedence over my preferences as a consumer, probably going to be a fail. But I'm optimistic. So Olo says late 2026 is when this network expansion kicks in. So, we'll see how real this gets and how fast it goes. So I think to wrap it up, yes, it could be a huge win. Huge win for guests, absolutely. Particularly if, again, the simplicity, the economics, the trust, if those things work out. I think the bar is high. Make it simpler, fair, trustworthy, as mentioned. But the other part of the bar being high is that guests really don't necessarily want another platform unless it makes sense. I think there will be some addition through subtraction here, meaning if Olo can win on this, consumers may be subtracting other marketplaces, which I guess is the entire point of this, isn't it? So I think that I think we live in interesting times. I just read a comment actually on LinkedIn a short while ago about best in class, and I think that there was once a time when restaurant technology companies were all aiming for being best in class. And I still think that that's the case, but I think the narrative now is that we're creating best-in-class ecosystems, right? We're not necessarily, it's just, there is no best-in-class solution now. There's a best-in-class ecosystem. And that is the direction for which we are all headed, which ecosystem does your operation operate in? And I think it's very possible that you could be in multiple ecosystems. And to a certain degree, you want to be diversified, but it's a weird balance. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I should also mention Kbit, client of Popcorn GTM, as their fractional CMO. I'm extremely excited to see how Kbit fits into this Olo app. I think it's an absolute win, especially for consumers, because we all know the beauty of Kbit is that it orchestrates orders. So orders come in, Kbit sits in between the POS and the KDS and literally digitally orchestrates the order to literally tell when the operation should fire it, when they should make the product. And it does so through a relatively complex AI magic and algorithm. But the beauty of Kbit is that when it says, when the order says, your order will be ready at 12:48, I know the order will be ready at 12:48. And that, as a consumer, is a big deal because I don't want to wait for my food and I don't want it sitting there waiting for me for God knows how long. So, with Kbit being an Olo partner, that's a big deal. And I think that's that could actually be a secret weapon, frankly, inside of this Olo app. So anyway, all right. I think I went long. It's an exciting thing. So that's modern solutions for modern restaurants on this lovely day in early March, and I will include some links, and you can go check it out. You can go check out the Olo app for yourself, and let me know. Let me know. Is this useful? Let me know in the comments. Like and subscribe, if you want. Make me feel good about myself and give me a thumbs up. All right. All right. We're done. Ciao, everybody.